When I first met Daniel, I felt like my entire world had shifted. He was everything I had ever dreamed of. Kind, ambitious, gentle with his words, and endlessly supportive. We met at a local charity event where I was volunteering, and he was one of the sponsors. From the moment our eyes met, something clicked. He told me he admired my heart and the way I cared for others. Within months, our connection deepened into love. I brought him home to meet my family, excited to finally introduce the man I wanted to spend my life with. But from the first dinner, I sensed something off. My mother's smile was too forced, her compliments too sharp. My sister Tasha was all charm, leaning in too close, laughing at every word Daniel said, wearing that confidence she always carried like a crown. I brushed it off as my own insecurity, but little did I know, it was the beginning of my heartbreak. Over the next few months, my mother's opinion of Daniel shifted in ways that made me uneasy. She told me that Daniel was too ambitious for someone like me, that I wasn't ready to support a man like him. "You're too emotional," she said one night while we washed dishes. "Men like Daniel need strong women like your sister." I laughed, thinking she was joking, but her tone told me otherwise. Slowly, I began noticing how she would invite Tasha to join us on dates, family dinners, or even casual meetups. And each time, Tasha was radiant, confident, and bold, everything I wasn't when I was around my mother. I loved Daniel deeply, but I started to feel like I was fighting for a place in my own relationship. One evening, Daniel came over looking pale and nervous. He told me he'd had a talk with my mother. She had convinced him that I wasn't the right one for his future, that I would hold him back. And she told him that Tasha would be a much better match. I remember my knees giving way as I tried to understand how my mother could betray me like that. He tried to explain that he didn't want to hurt me, but the damage was already done. Within months, Daniel and Tasha were engaged. I couldn't bear to stay. Every corner of my home carried memories of love twisted into betrayal. My mother told everyone that I had been too immature to handle a real relationship, painting me as dramatic and weak. I left home with nothing but a suitcase and my pride in pieces. I moved to another city, started working as a marketing assistant, and slowly began building a new life. It wasn't easy, nights were long, and loneliness often crept in like a shadow. But in that solitude, I discovered something powerful: myself. I learned to be independent, to rely on my own strength, to chase success on my terms. I climbed my way up the career ladder, saving money, meeting new people, and traveling the world. Life slowly became vibrant again. Years later, I was invited to speak at a corporate conference, one of the biggest of my career. I'd grown into someone confident, successful, and proud of the woman I had become. What I didn't know was that fate had a way of bringing the past right back to my doorstep. The night of the event, I walked into the grand ballroom in a shimmering black gown, feeling unstoppable. Cameras flashed and people greeted me warmly. Then from across the room I froze. My mother and sister were standing by the banquet table, and beside them Daniel. My heart skipped, but this time, not from pain. I held my head high and walked past them with grace. My mother's face turned pale the moment she saw me. My sister's smile faltered, and Daniel, he just stood there speechless. After my speech, guests lined up to congratulate me, but the real shock came when my husband walked in. Tall, confident, with a gentle smile that melted every trace of my past pain. Michael was everything I had prayed for, but never thought I'd find. He was not only successful, but also kind and deeply loyal. When I introduced him to my family, the color drained from their faces. My mother looked like she'd seen a ghost. My sister's eyes widened in disbelief. Because Michael wasn't just my husband. He was Daniel's former boss, the one who had fired him years ago after discovering his unethical behavior. The silence that followed was almost poetic. My mother stammered, trying to form words, but I simply smiled. "Mom," I said softly, "you told me Daniel needed a strong woman. I guess you were right, just not the way you imagined." My sister turned away, unable to meet my eyes. The pain I once carried had transformed into peace. I didn't need revenge. Life had already taken care of that. As I stood there with Michael's hand in mine, surrounded by the glittering lights of success and grace, I realized something powerful. Sometimes, the best revenge is becoming everything they said you couldn't be. And as we walked out of that ballroom, leaving my stunned family behind, I knew one thing for certain. Fate had indeed spoken, and this time, it spoke in my favor.